welcome to the Laughing Monkey Music Show. Today we have Myke Scavone. How are you?
Okay, I'm doing well.
I'm glad you're on. As we were talking a little bit before, well, I actually didn't realize. I knew of you being in the Yardbirds. I knew also of you in Doughboys. I didn't realize you were in Ram Jam, so it's kind of a fun fact for me. We'll talk about it for a minute, but we don't have to keep on that. I want to really talk about your main band, which is the Doughboys, which are fantastic. You have a couple albums out, and I think you have a new
Seven,
album. How many?
seven.
Seven? All right. I thought you would. I only counted six, and I think I miscounted
Well,
somewhere. So
there's a live DVD concert that we did, which
okay, there you go. You win. Your band. um, but early on, you started in '64, right?
the Doughboys originally started '64. I joined
Yes.
them in '65. That's a very interesting story too, because I was in a rival band. I was the drummer in a rival band uh, called the Apollos. They were called the Ascots at that point, and we basically were vying for positions to play all the high school dances back then in the '60s. And what happened was um, our lead singer at the
Hmm.
time, because I was a drummer, um, he would play. He also played drums. He played keyboards. He was a very talented guy. Played trumpet. Freaking guy was amazing. He's still doing a lot of trumpet gigs right now. But anyway, he on a couple songs he wanted to play drums, so I let him play drums, and I would go up front and sing, and but most of the singing I did before that would be behind the drums while I was playing. And so I was always into performing. To me, I thought, if you just stand there and sing, I could listen to the record and get the same thing.
Right.
And so when I would get up in front, I would just I dance all over the place like a lunatic, basically. I don't know how to dance, but I did.
It's rock and roll.
And yeah, exactly. It's rock and roll. You can do whatever you want. So what happened is the guitar player and the drummer, Richie Heyman, which you probably know as Richard X. Heyman, I would
Yep.
guess. Yeah. They were at one of the gigs where I stepped up front because they had never seen the band before, other than when we had auditions to try to get a gig,
Right.
and
Right.
I was always behind the drums then. So they saw me come up front and start dancing around, and they were like, "Holy crap, who is this guy?" So what happened was that was in the summer, and at the end of the summer, what was happening at that point is our guitar player and the lead singer were going into college, so they were going away. They weren't going to be around anymore, and um, so the band basically broke up. And then I'm sitting in the backyard of our bass player's house on the swings one day, and Richie, who I'd never really known and hadn't
Yeah.
met him, came back, and we're sitting on the swings, just kind of swinging back and forth and talking about music. And he's like, "Well, what are you going to do now that the Apollo's broken up?" Because everybody knew what was happening. And so I said to him, "Well, you know what? I'm really thinking I want to get up front and sing." And he goes, "Wow, that's funny because we're thinking we need a front man." So, long story short, that's how I became the lead singer in the Doughboys, and that was in '65.
Totally meant to be, huh?
Yeah, yeah, it was it was amazing.
Can I ask though? Had you just become a singer? And it's funny, there are a couple of drummers that are also really good singers, and drummers are kind of a neat mixture. You know, had you done a lot of like family singing or like church or school choir singing? Like, where did the singing come from? All of a sudden, you're like, I'm gonna sing. You just, or you
That was
just,
it.
that was it. You just said, I'm gonna sing, and you got up in front, and that was it.
Yeah, I just
Wow.
decided I was going to sing. That was it. I figured if I could sing from behind the drums,
Right.
I'm doing the same thing, only I'm standing up now, which is actually easier to sing than
Well, because
sitting.
your diaphragm is in a better spot.
Exactly. Yeah.
I give it credit. Lead singers, people that are playing drums and singing while sitting down, is like you gotta have like Louis Armstrong like lungs and stuff because that's like insanity for me. The power to perform and sing.
Well, yeah, I also had a couple shows. One of the bands I played with later on after the Doughboys broke up, I played drums in this country rock band,
Hmm.
and I would have to play harmonica on a couple songs. So I would be playing drums and harmonica and singing. You know, not singing while I was playing harmonica, but it was very
Jeez,
interesting. You know, it was I
man.
always had a problem with those harmonica holders because they would always fall. You know,
Oh yeah.
you'd be constantly like trying to catch up.
That's another instrument. Like, and you play that. You're insane with that. Like, you're fantastic. I think you should be really known for that too. As a matter of fact, because there's not a lot of harmonica players that have played through the years, as long and as well, and are still playing as well. Like you haven't changed. And people, please after this, check out, go to the website because the website will be here whether it's you listen to the podcast or watching us on YouTube. You crazy kids watching us do the video. Go to the website, watch the videos, and you can see it. It's really good. It's really entertaining, and you jam on harmonica, and that's kind of a lost art nowadays. You know,
Yeah.
it
Well,
really is.
thank you. I appreciate that. It's kind of funny because the lead guitar player in the Doughboys was the one who showed me how to bend notes.
Hmm.
And once I learned, I literally, when I was 17 years old, I got my car, my license, and I would drive around with a harmonica in my mouth the whole time. And so, that's basically how I learned to play was just fooling around. And then, I started listening like I was, again, 65 was the first time I saw the Rolling Stones live, one of their first tours of the United States.
Hmm.
And Brian Jones just blew me away the way he played harmonica.
Right. Well,
You know, he was so good, and
he was
he
so good at
really,
everything.
yeah, exactly.
Oh,
He was too good. But he he was a very big influence on me first picking up the harmonica and really catching the blues. He had a real feel for what the old blues guys used to do.
mhm.
Before the Chicago blues became big and everybody was playing through amps.
Right.
Which I never did until I actually joined the Yardbirds.
Yeah.
I always played straight into my vocal mic, and it's kind of funny because Keith Relif never played through an amp either. I think he might have a couple times in the studio, but
Yeah.
live he always played into the vocal mic. And
It's just a different sound. It's just like it's like an effect or a pedal. It's just something just a little bit different. It's a
yeah,
flavor, really. If you can't play, you can't play, no matter what. You know what I mean? But playing like through a vocal mic and really playing it live acoustically without any effects is a lot less forgiving, and it really shows, the
oh
skill.
yeah, sure.
Less forgiving.
But you still got to know what you're doing.
Oh no, of course, of course. Well, that's my whole point. Is it says a lot more though to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Um, and the fact that but you had to have known to play. I mean, there's like three schools of thought I think for like playing any instruments.
Mhm.
Either you're just you play a lot and you just not some people just aren't good, or you just work really hard and you get good at it from just working really hard. And there's some people that are just so good at everything they just touch it, like like a Prince or somebody. You know what I'm saying? Any artist that just touches something and
Right.
they can just play automatically. And I think I think you're probably in the school of in the middle where you had to work hard at it, but you also have that musical you know skills that are already in you. So it just needed a little bit of a provoking to jump into it.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think that's true. It's because and harmonica especially is very much a feel instrument, which is why you hear so many different styles. For instance, you could talk to people about Chicago blues and that real heavy,
Mhm.
gruff sound that they get out of their amps. But there's so many different styles within that. I mean, when you listen to guys like Paul Butterfield, who
Yep.
was one of my first inspirations as far as that style of harmonica playing,
Yeah.
through an amp and stuff. He just blew me away. He was just incredible. That guy died way too young. He should have affected a lot more people in his life, but his life was just too short. And he was one of those guys that really introduced me to Chicago blues.
Hmm.
I had heard it before, but I didn't hear it the way he played it until I heard him play. He was amazing.
To me, I mean, I love harmonica, but it has to be. I'm very picky about it. Like I couldn't. First off, I couldn't even touch it. I couldn't do it. The most I could do is I probably hold, like you driving with it. I could hold out the window to maybe make a sound. I am not gonna pretend I can make a sound. But to me, harmonica is like when you play slide guitar. You either do it really
Yeah.
well or it's just awful. You know what I'm saying? And to me, like you playing it, like you actually in the Doughboys, you listen to the band. To me, it feels very it has a Brit rock flavor without being British rock. It has a
Right.
feeling in a way that jangly sound like the Stones had. And it's not it doesn't sound like the Stones, but it's the Stones. It's the sound the Stones had also adopted. They just were more popular
Mhm.
with it. It's that sound where it's kind of like it's a big sound. There's a lot of space for the vocals because there's no effects, and every instrument has its place. But it has this melody that just runs through it with each instrument, you know,
Yeah.
and it has a continuity that just you're like, oh, but it feels simple, but it's not. Also, does that make
Mhm.
sense to you? Like it has a an underlying complexity.
Yeah, I mean, it's rock and roll. I mean,
I
it's, I
I
mean,
know
how
if
do
you
you
hear it
really
enough, you listen to
dissect
it.
it? I mean, when I watch or listen or read reviews from different writers, I'm amazed at the things they come up with because, I mean, I would never be able to come up with some of the adjectives that they come up with to explain, for instance, even our albums and the
Right.
sounds on those albums. And I just wonder, like, how did they get that far into it? To me, I just play. And I don't consider myself to be a great musician by any means. In fact, I consider myself to be a very lucky hack. and but I just love to play, and that's the thing that really has driven me all along. It's not trying to make a living at it. I really never tried to make a living at it. I've always done it because I love it. And even now, I don't make a living at it. I do other stuff to pay my bills, and
Yeah.
and doing that all along.
And that's the best advice to anybody listening. If you're a musician, don't do it for money. You do it because you love it. I do the
That's right.
show. I do the show. I don't make money off of it. I do it because I love it, and I want to support artists like you that people should listen to. That's it. I have no end game. It's just I enjoy music. I enjoy your music. I want more people to listen to your music. You
Me
know,
too.
it's that's two people. That's two of us.
There's two
Let's
of
get
us
more.
so
Let's get more of us
far.
now.
Yeah.
But that's the truth. Is like, and that's what it really comes down to is the love of music. But I think what happens is, like, the simplicity. If you just write a song, some people write a lot of music and they don't. I don't know what these keys are, or I don't know what this is when they play guitar. A lot of the best
Mhm.
musicians can't read music. They play guitar. I've
Right.
talked to more guitar players, and they're like, never had a lesson. They go, I'll be honest with you, I can't even read music. And they've written these things and these chords that are just like, you're like, what are you like? You know what I mean? The way other people could analyze it, you're like, I don't know what that is. They're like, I don't know, it just sounds good. And you're like, in fact, the musicality of that song, the way you did it, shouldn't sound good, but it sounds good because there's something about it.
Right, because
And if
it's
you
something
knew to follow the
unique.
rules, it probably wouldn't even go on there. And
Yeah,
that's what it goes to you with rock and roll, where it's like, if it sounds good, it sounds good.
yeah. That's it. If it feels good, if it sounds good, it should feel good.
Hmm.
And if it sounds good and it feels good, there's nothing else to talk about as far as I'm concerned.
It did. So you actually, so for the Doughboys have actually, so what happened? You guys actually had them take ended, and then you had some time in
68.
between. I'll see a
Yeah,
lot of
we were
time,
from.
but
It's funny because our timeline, not that I was in it, but the timeline of the Doughboys was from 64 to 68. The timeline for the Yardbirds was 64 to 68 before they broke up and then reformed. We reformed, and that's a funny story. I don't know if you've ever talked to Richie about this, but
mm,
um, what happened was, we basically went our ways. I got into Ram Jam at one point, and I was lead singer with them for that was a minute, literally. I mean that band one hit wonder and you know died out like a shooting star. But at any rate, I around 19, I want to say somewhere around 1980s into the 1990s, late 80s into the 90s, I hadn't talked to anybody in the Doughboys
mm,
for a long time, probably a good 15 years at least. And I was working as a painter, painting houses and stuff. And I stopped at this coffee place around the corner from my house. And I see they got an aquarium. I don't know where you live, but it's a New Jersey magazine, rock
okay,
magazine.
yeah, yeah.
And I see in the corner, there's this little thing that says, Richard Heyman live interview. And I'm like, Richard X Heyman. I never
Right,
knew
I
him
go by
as
X.
Richard X Heyman. I knew him as Richie.
Oh, Richie. Okay.
That's how everybody knew him in the Doughboys. And we still call him that to this day. But I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, nah, that can't be, right? So I grabbed the magazine, I pay for it, and I go and I'm reading it, and I find about what he's doing. That he's living in the city and he's doing cat rescues and he's playing gigs in the city. And he had a couple albums that he had done by then. So I contacted him, because back then you used yellow pages to
That's
find
right.
people, right? So they had his address. I think I couldn't find it because I was living in New Jersey. He was in New York. So I called the operator, which nobody knows what that is anymore.
Which you could do. I'm in Connecticut, so I'm not that far from there. So yeah, the whole tri-state.
Yeah, and and I asked information, and I got his number, and I called, and I was talking to Nancy, and then his wife, and then I eventually got to talk to Richie, and I asked him what he was doing, where he was playing,
Hmm.
and so I would go into the city to see him every now and then, and he did a couple gigs in Hoboken that I went to, and I was just enjoying listening to his music. I wasn't had nothing about at that point. I wasn't even playing music myself. I was like I had got burnt out. But at any point, at any rate, what happened was I think it was his 49th birthday. It wasn't even his 50th birthday. Nancy called me and said, "Do you know how to find the other Doughboys?" And I said, "Yeah, I pretty much talk to them every now and then."
Yeah.
Said, "Why?" So she goes, "I want to do a surprise party for Richie and have you guys come in and be set up on the stage in this place. And then, he'll come in and be surprised and blah, blah." So I said, "Yeah, let me get a hold of him and see." So what we did was I got a hold of Willie and I got a hold of Mike Caruso.
Hmm.
And because I play drums, what we did is we rehearsed a bunch of songs that we used to do in high school because
Right.
it's the first time we played since high school. And we just picked 10 songs because we figured that would make a reasonable set.
Yeah.
It was stuff that we all could play and remember. And so we went over them in my basement and, just kind of got the arrangements and everything back up. And I think we rehearsed once or twice. And then, so the thing was, we just went and set up. She got Arlene's Grocery in New York City as to let us play for an hour before they actually opened their sets.
Hmm.
So we went in there and we set up and everything. And he comes and he sees on the marquee the Doughboys, and I guess he's wondering
What the heck?
which Doughboys are these. The funny thing about that is the name. I found like 5 different bands
Yeah,
with
there
that.
is. Yeah.
It's crazy. And I don't know why anybody would want that name because I never liked it personally. But at any rate, so he comes in, he gets on stage, and it was like we never stopped playing. It was like magic. It was the most amazing thing.
Now,
And that was just supposed to be it. It was going to be a one-off for his birthday.
can
And
I, can I ask you one thing? If I'm sorry, had you been practicing, or the other members playing? Now he's been playing a lot, so him jumping in is probably a musical standard. But you said you were taking a break from music a little bit.
yeah,
Had
I
the other
wasn't
members
doing
too?
anything.
Were you playing your drums at all? Were they just dusty in the basement? Like, were you just
I,
singing in the car? You know what I'm saying? Like, what shape were you guys in? And then you guys got together and jumped in with him,
yeah,
like
I
in the
think,
mindset.
well, Willie had been doing, he had been playing all along. He actually got into some country music. He had put out a country album.
Hmm.
Mike Caruso would just do pickup gigs with whoever he
Okay.
could at any time. Myself, the only time I played drums in my church's worship team. So that was the only
All right. So you
only
guys were doing a little something. You weren't totally
yeah,
just
we weren't totally cold doing
okay.
nothing.
Okay.
Um, but just a couple of rehearsals of doing that and those songs that we hadn't even thought about singing for 20, 30 years, whatever it was. Um, that was it. I think it was August. Yeah, August of 2000 is when we did that show. And then the guy at Arlene's Grocery asked us if we'd be willing to come back. And we were like, we're not really a band anymore, but we thought, well, what the heck? If
Yeah.
just do that, the 10 songs that we did, we could do that. So we did that. And then uh, a guy from Manitoba, he used to be on Little Steven's Underground Garage as one of the DJs, but he had a place called Manitoba's on Avenue B. And he came and asked us if we'd play there. And one thing led to another. And next thing we know, we're playing almost every weekend in New York City at these little clubs. And,
Yeah.
you know, that's basically how the band got back together in 2000. And
That's
we
pretty
lasted
amazing.
until 2019.
Wow.
Yeah.
So wait,
19
you
years.
that's it. So wait, are you guys gone now or done or what?
We're not doing anything actively.
Done or
Well, we don't know. Anything can happen. I honestly, what happened was, um, I started feeling, being a lead singer and being a front man, there's a lot of weight on me, and I will not have a music stand or an iPad or anything where I have to read the lyrics off of. And we were starting to play and just do like 2, 3 hours straight ahead. I don't like taking breaks. Once we start, I want to just keep going. And after a while, it was just starting to wear on me singing for 2 or 3 hours straight. Um, Oddly enough, not so much on my voice, but on my brain,
Mhm.
remembering all those lyrics for all of those songs,
Yeah.
And plus, we were constantly learning new songs because of the albums we were putting out. So it wasn't like, once you learn 20 songs, you're good, It was like 20 songs, now we're adding 10 more, and now we're adding 10 more, and then, it was always me that had to put the set together and decide which songs we use, which songs we don't use. Because probably when I quit the band, which was October, it was right after our last gig, October of 2019. Um, I just said, I told everybody when I got in, I said, I'm doing this because I love it. I'm doing this because it's fun. If it stops being fun, I'm going to stop doing it. And because I was feeling so much pressure, it stopped being fun for me.
But that
And
was
so,
your pressure though, right?
huh?
These were all your things that you've brought up. These are all
It
things
was
that you
all
were
me. Yeah, it was all, it was,
maybe you need to pull yourself aside, talk to yourself and realize give yourself a break and just
yeah,
enjoy singing a couple songs with some friends. I mean,
right. Well, that's why, you know, and that before all of this happened, because I joined the Yardbirds in 2015. So I was doing Yardbirds shows and doing our shows. And maybe that had something to do with it because I realized, first of all, we're playing in front of much bigger audiences.
mhm.
Um, we're playing basically the same song set, you know, different orders and different
Right.
stuff thrown in now and then. But for the most part, and I wasn't singing a lead now. I'm just a side guy playing percussion, harmonica, and doing background vocals. And man, it was like the easiest gig I've ever had in my life. And but I
Except for
love
Ram
the
Jam.
music.
Also, you were doing the same
Well,
thing.
Ram
That's
Jam, yeah, yeah. But that I was still the front man.
I know.
But it wasn't the same as the Doughboys. I felt like I was just carrying a lot of weight for a long time.
That's a lot of songs for an artist to carry at this point in your career.
Mm-hmm.
That's the Beatles in Germany doing sets and learning new music, and you're 18 and 20 years old. That's not something a band does at this point in your life. You don't need to. It becomes
Right.
like your brain doesn't work that way. Mine doesn't. I can't tell you what I had for dinner last night. Like
Mine definitely
I don't
does.
know even know my kids' names. You know. So like to put that kind of stress on yourself when you're like not needed, and you know being in the Yardbirds and doing that music, you know the fans want X amount of certain songs, and a band like the
Right.
Yardbirds can't escape from it. They can't. They have a
No.
legacy set list, and they can probably sneak a few things in once in a while, mix it up a little bit. But really, that's the audience. So you enjoy it as it is. You've got a
Yeah.
little
And
different of a different pleasure where each tour you could go. You know what? This will be our new set of 15 songs. 5 other songs we can learn just to rotate them to mix it up and chill. You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? You can really kind of give yourself a break a little bit.
And I have never, and since 2015, I mean, again, we had 2.5 years of doing nothing because of the whole COVID mess. But I have never felt bored on the stage with the Yardbirds. I never felt bored on the stage ever, you
Right,
know,
but yeah.
Doughboys or whatever. But the fact that we're only doing like now, as opposed to, I mean, we had over 50 original songs with the Doughboys when I quit,
Mhm.
probably 60. And plus, we probably had another 50 cover songs that we would do, and circulate. But with the Yardbirds, there's probably about 20 songs, and we do a 15, 16 song set,
Right.
you know. And it's always fun for me. It's And you would think just the opposite. You would think that it would stop being challenging and that it wouldn't be as much fun because it's not challenging. But it's always challenging and it's always fun for me. And I don't even know how to explain that, but it
I
is.
get that. I get that. What could be very fun. It's more of an artist's opinion of how they feel doing it. To me,
Mhm.
watching it and playing like garage bands and stuff,
Right.
I've always just enjoyed doing music, whether it's playing guitar alone. I just enjoy it. But I've never had to do it professionally every night after night and like have to like be in a car all day with somebody or a bus and be in a bad mood and be like somebody hasn't showered or something crazy next to you and you're ready to strangle them and then you go up on stage with them. I haven't been there though, so I can't speak for that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I've only had it under the situations where I've enjoyed it. So I think I would love to see you guys, get back out there. I mean, I've yet to see you guys. I mean, you're close to me, so hopefully at a point I will be able to if you guys play again because as COVID's opened up the world again for me.
Yeah. For me, the Doughboys has always been um, my favorite band to play with. They always will be, and that's not a slight on the Yardbirds by any means because they were one of my heroes growing up. I mean,
It's a different band.
it's
The
a total,
Yardbirds and the Doughboys sound totally different.
yeah, yeah. And there's just something about the makeup. Gar Francis has been the guitar player in the Doughboys from I think 2004 because Willie passed away
Mhm.
in early 2004. So Gar fit in so well, and plus he's the one that actually pushed us to be writing songs and doing our own music, which is how we started putting out albums and got Little Steven's
Right.
attention. And so he had a lot to do with um, being the newest member and also the youngest member of the band. He had a lot to do with the fact that we actually got the airplay. He was really good for the band, but
Yeah.
I can't think of four other guys I'd rather play with, or three other guys I should say, because it's only a four-man band, and that's always tough for a guitar player to have to carry that when
Right.
all you got is a drummer and a bass player and nobody playing rhythms behind you. But it also speaks to how good of a rhythm section Richie and Mike Caruso are.
Hmm.
They were phenomenal. I mean, I'm pretty sure we could throw together a gig without even rehearsing and they would still blow people away because those guys are just that good.
I think you should because they're. I mean, I think I see it in your eyes still. I think you're. I think you just gotta enjoy yourself more and take it for
Yeah, I
fun.
got I got to find a way. If I can find a way to set up a solid gig. The odd thing about the Doughboys is even with all the airplay we were getting on Little Steven's Underground Garage, we still we weren't pulling what I would call a big audience. I mean, if we got over 100 people, we were feeling pretty good. But even that, at sometimes, I mean, there were some even after like three or four albums were out, where we'd play a place in New York City and maybe have 30, 40 people. We
Really.
played one, we played one gig. I couldn't believe it. We played this one gig, and I think there were like 8 people in the audience, and most of them were people we knew.
It's crazy because like with the standards and with the lineage that you guys have as artists, that you need a manager that would get you some of those industrial gigs where you make the money, you kind of go in to play these events and these things. You guys are the quality that can go in and do these things, you know, those kind
Yeah,
of events with those kind of between the covers and the original and the energy, and that's totally the audience because this is we're middle age rumors, but like I'm in my 50s. This is the age that has the money. This is the group. This is the companies that has
right.
the cash to do this stuff. You know, I think there's a space when kids get out of college, or whatever. It's a hard audience to hit. You know what I mean? Everyone's kind of
Mhm.
scrapping. I just think they're hitting the wrong audience. I think you need a manager to hit you up there.
That was that
That's
was
the
really
psychic.
that's really what held us back more than anything. There were two things that held us back: not having a manager because we were a DIY band. We did everything ourselves. Um, and the other thing was neither Richie or Gar would get on a plane.
Hmm.
So
That could be a
it
challenge.
limited where we could go,
Right.
and the furthest we did, we did a short tour going down to Atlanta Atlanta, Georgia. We did a festival down there, and we set up a bunch of gigs along the way. But we were able to drive that,
Yep.
you know, so that we were hitting a place here, played some record stores, and did stuff like that. And that was good, and I think all the guys felt good about it. It wasn't like it was a high paying gig. We
No.
basically cost us a little bit to do it, but it was fun. It was great, And that was one of the things too for me. It was like I just felt like the fact that we couldn't pull in as many people as I thought the band deserved to have, and the fact that we couldn't get out of the area,
Hmm.
and not having a manager that could do that with us. I think a lot of managers probably wouldn't have taken us on because we wouldn't travel.
Maybe I do think though, like corporate wise, like I know other bands that do like corporate music or whatever. They do like old style rock and roll.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are authentic and you guys sound good. You know what I mean? And that's just
Well,
from
we're
like
from the
seeing YouTube.
60s.
I know you are, but you guys sound really good. And you're the kind of music like where people go to like some of these big corporate events and they could go in and you could do a couple thousand of like their employees and you could just do a show for them, make some
Right.
change. And you're the kind of music where they don't have to know all the songs. It just sounds good. And that's like a lot of the music from the 60s or from like Little Steven's Garage. You don't have to even know the songs. Halfway
Right.
through it, you're like, I get it. I like it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
It's
I
not
know
like you have to
exactly
go to
what you're
school
saying.
to learn all this music, to be a fan. Yeah, I don't know. To me, it feels like, you need a manager that would knows where to work the gigs, get you guys back into it. A couple hit gigs like that a year would be sweet for you guys to play.
Oh, we would love to do something like that. You know,
That would be the way to go. You
yeah,
guys have it already. You guys are like, and it's hard because I don't think anybody does those gigs like you're talking about anymore. I think it's really hard. You know,
it is. Yeah,
it's package deals and festivals and flyouts and boat cruises for a lot of other rock bands from the 70s and 80s, which is a
yeah,
sweet deal because before everyone was just driving from town to town, re-hitting the same market, so nobody's going out, an extra town for gas money. So, you know, you just got to find your sweet spot. And you either that or you got to learn how to play guitar because you got a lot of songs you want to write still, right? You need a band.
I do. Yeah. Well, I've been having fun with the Yardbirds. They're a really great bunch of guys, and again, I love the music.
Hmm.
It's just I've always loved their music. So, for me, it was, and I tell people it wasn't even on my bucket list. When I when I got the call to try out, it was like, and I didn't even have to try out.
Who called you? Mike
Jim
call you?
just,
Oh, Jim called you? Jim called you?
yeah, he just went on YouTube and looked at some of the stuff. And actually, we opened for them at one point at BB King's.
Okay. He's a really sweet guy. I had him on with his probably, as you know, he had a book out a while ago. We had a
Right,
really good talk about that. What he went through with COVID and his passing of his wife, and
right.
really uplifting story. So I feel it's probably obviously talking to you, a really good bunch of guys to play with too. It seems like it's a nice group to be with. You
Yeah.
know,
He's a good guy. He's
what
he's really a gentleman.
what about you doing some stuff on your own, like having a bunch of your musician friends doing like a soloish album, kind of like a collective thing? I mean,
You know,
you're a musician, man. How can you not?
it's I have dreams about that every so often, but getting people together, and you may not know it, but I moved out of New Jersey. So I'm not even in that area anymore.
Okay,
I'm
yeah,
actually in Austin, Texas area, where there's a million musicians here.
yeah.
But it's like any place else. When you're a new guy in town and you're trying to break in and get to know people, it's been a little rough. I really haven't reached out. I've met some musicians, I've met different guys here and there, but I haven't really tried to get out there. One of the problems I have, I mean, I would love to go do some of these open mic nights,
Yeah.
but I'm at that age where driving at night. you
I agree. Yeah.
you probably don't know about this yet,
No,
but
I do actually. Glasses all my life, so I'm like, I'm
yeah,
done.
yeah. It's you know what it is? It's oncoming lights that get
Yeah.
me. I go blind, literally, and that's not good
No.
when you're
Not if you're
driving.
driving. You need someone to drive with you. Oh yes.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, my wife will usually go with me wherever I go, but not always. Sometimes she just isn't up to it. And
I
I
think.
understand that.
I mean, there's a lot of talent in Austin too. That would be fantastic. It'd
Oh
be really
yeah,
interesting to have some of that Austin, Texas flair added to your blues. That would be kind of a neat sound too.
yeah,
You know?
yeah. I've met some guys. I'm not pushing anything, but I think something will eventually
There's got to be some young guitar
all together.
gunslingers out there that would love to work with you. That would be, you know,
Yeah,
be
one of them
fun.
is my chiropractor plays
Really,
guitar
really.
that I met out here.
See,
Guys, he's a good guitar player too. Sings, has a decent voice, you know. So anything can happen.
it can, and I want to encourage that. So I want people to check out all of your stuff, and obviously check out the Doughboys and stuff, and follow you and keep after you because as things come up, hopefully you'll post that on your Facebook page also. I
Yes.
tell you, the was weirdest thing for me, and I the thought is like when I knew you were in, like I said, I seen Ram Jam, and I was like, I didn't understand. I'm like, why is this the guitar player singing with the singer off to the side? It was like the weirdest thing for a video. That, and then of course, as much fun as Howie had playing bass, the expression that would be like everyone's. If I could feel that happy in my life, I would be that would be the best. That move that he captures right there, you can't watch it and not smile. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's I don't know anything about the situation, but all I know is I see somebody having that much fun. I'm like, you can't not smile. But then, like, you're also singing, like, with the Yardbirds, co-singing, or, like I'm saying, you're not the main
Right.
singer again. And then, like, I listened to Garage Underground, too. So, like, I heard you guys, but I didn't put it all together
Yeah.
as being you. So when I connected the dots, I was like, oh my God. It's so funny how you were like, but in two bands, you were like the singer, but also kind of on the side co-singer.
Yeah.
And then you had a bigger band that you were a huge immense amounts of original music, which is really good, and you're lesser known. So it just, you know, it was bookend really weird to me.
It is a very weird thing, and it's a very hard thing to explain to people because people hear Myke Scavone, lead singer in Ram Jam, and I say, yeah, I was the
But
lead singer, but I didn't sing Black Betty.
right, but you do a good job though. The clips are out there if you're doing it live. So
I have fun.
yeah,
I mean,
you
again,
delivered.
it was fun.
It was his voice. It probably just was a decision. His voice for it. But it was weird to have you sing and him because I mean he's a good singer too. But it was almost like two different singers, two really good singers for like that amount of music. Just felt like it was just like almost like too much. You know what I mean? Like you didn't need to have two really good singers. You
Well, the
know?
thing is, the band was literally built around Bill,
Right.
Ram
I
Jam,
get that.
and he had been doing Black Betty for years in clubs and stuff. So that was his song.
Oh yeah, I get it. It does. It
I
sings
would have
did a good
loved to have
job.
stolen it from him because I would, I'd love to sing that song, and I have on some occasions. But
It's a fun song. Everyone
it
sing that
is.
song. I've seen Tom Jones sing that live. It's a good song.
You're right.
It's a fun song. My point is, it was very much like when you see a band and like to see the singer off to the side. I'm like, who's this guy with the tambourine? Like, I didn't get it. And then the bass players were having fun. I'm like, oh, you just gotta enjoy it. It was, when it was. But it was like having so much talent. But looking back and listening to the album and knowing what your role was and like really getting into it,
Yeah,
then just seeing the video and being like, that's weird. Why is there one guy singing in the background? Is he a fan of the band? Like, you don't really hear it in the video, but you go
right.
back and you listen to the album. There's other songs that you're on. You're like, oh. Then you're like, oh well. Then why is there so much two really strong singers and two albums are like what I'm saying. It just felt like there should have been
Yeah.
like I feel like overkill. Like there should have been more.
Well, it is, and it was. And if you
Yeah.
listen, I don't know if you know about the second Ram Jam album, but that is like light years away from the first one because you see the second guitar player in that video,
Yeah.
Jimmy Santoro. He basically became the lead guitar player uh, and wrote or co-wrote most of the songs, not all of them, but most of the songs on the second album. And that album has far more of I don't know, like a more of a Zeppelin Aerosmith type feel than what the first
Yeah.
album had. It's just again light years removed from the first album. And most people didn't know that we even put out a second album.
I'd heard it on because of the way they re-released it or something. I was confused
Right.
about like so like when I heard it together and the fact that you were the singer on some songs and the others and the way like you iTunes and Spotify like labels musicians. You're like I have no idea. I literally And then eventually I could listen to and I could listen to and pick out your voice and a lot more stuff now, especially after realizing you were the singer of the Doughboys that I've heard on, on Little
Right.
Steven's Underground. I'm like, oh. And then go back, I'm like, oh, you know. But as a fan, listen to just that band separately, you're like, it's kind of hard to understand the whole soup.
Yeah, yeah. And for me, I mean, when I was in Ram Jam, I'm trying to think, that was I think I was 27, something like that. And I was young. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. They put a contract in front of us and I just signed it. Yeah, sure.
That's what everybody did back then. That was the thing,
Yeah.
you know?
At 27, what am I going to do? Hire a lawyer? I have, I came from a family with five, I have five brothers and four sisters. All right. So, the last thing we did was hire anybody because we had no money.
All right, but now when you're 27 trying to get signed, you're on YouTube or you're on social media, and it's not a
Oh,
dig towards
that's
them. It's just as hard, but you're trying to get viewers and numbers.
right.
I don't know, almost getting a contract and just going on tour and living to regret it sounds way more fun.
It is.
And dealing with the disaster afterwards and apologizing. It's better to
Yeah.
apologize than ask for something, they say, right?
That's
you know,
true. That's absolutely true.
you have some great bookends in your life, and you have a solid piece of work that you can be proud of with the Doughboys. And then, Ram Jam and the Yardbirds are fantastic bands that you've been in, also. But your songwriting shows with your team of all the other members that are fantastic too. I can
Yeah.
tell all those guys are great. You guys are great. There's a great chemistry with that band. You know, it
Because we
shows.
have history, and that's a lot of it. I mean, we grew up together. You went through stuff in high school where we were like brothers fighting sometimes, and other times just like the best of friends. It was
Yeah,
that kind of a thing, and it stayed like that all the way up until I just felt I needed to get away.
yeah.
And there was a bunch of things. There was some I had, and I don't even know how to explain this. And I was talking to a guitar player. I had this weird sense of foreboding about the future at that point. And I don't know what it was. I've never had that before. I never and then, a couple months later, here comes COVID.
Yeah.
And I was like, so we weren't going to be playing anyhow for the next couple of years. But I've thought about it'd be nice to get a reunion together, but it would have to be where we get to play in front of people.
Right.
And I would think if anybody's going to pull it off for us, it'd have to be Little Steven. He'd have to be involved somehow because he's got the clout to get an audience. You
Well, the
know,
roster he has, I don't know why he's not having annual Little Steven get-togethers or festivals.
I know. He does some stuff here in Austin with South by Southwest. I know he
Right,
sponsors some of the bands, but it's only the bands that are on his label.
right. But he has enough of a label that where he can just do something out in Jersey or New York or tri-state or else anywhere really where he thinks the
Yeah,
audience is going to be, and do it. His artists, all of his artists are pretty much. You're not like going genre to genre. You know what I mean? It's fun that the kind of music because it's all sounds different. Even though it's the same type of music, each artist sounds different. Just like the '80s
yeah,
or '70s. So it's not an overlap. He could just have a whole lineup for a whole day's worth of music, really.
yeah, yeah.
You know?
Oh, he easily can. I think it was the 10th anniversary of Little Steven's Underground Garage. He put on a thing at the Hard Rock Cafe in New York
Mm.
City, and he had I think three bands. I was really depressed that we weren't one of them, but again, we weren't on his label,
Right.
and because we've had our own label from day one, we just when we first got back together and decided to start recording, it was like, okay, what do we do with this now? And I said, let's start our own record company. What the heck? Everybody else has done it in the past.
Right.
And so that's what we did, and that was the other thing. I was managing the record company. I was managing the finances. Basically, I was running the band, I mean, Richie's wife, Nancy, was like amazing in how much she helped us because she had worked for Sony Records. She was basically the right hand lady to one of the vice presidents. She was personal secretary, and so she understood a lot more of how to put stuff out there and how to get it out there, and making up one sheets and all these different things that
Yeah.
you do to promote the band or promote an album, anyhow. And she helped us tremendously, and she helped us all through the whole thing. It wasn't just in the beginning, but her input was really helpful. And truthfully, if you talk to Richie, he would tell you that he probably wouldn't even have a career if it wasn't for Nancy because of her ability to make things happen. she's a mover and a shaker. She's really very good at that.
Well, it's good. I mean,
Yeah,
there's a lot of musicians that if their spouses or boyfriends or girlfriends weren't involved, they wouldn't have never recovered.
yeah. Most musicians aren't very good business people.
No, they're not. Because they're just about music. You know what I mean? Sometimes you can only
Yeah,
have one side of the brain, the right or the
that's
left.
it. Yeah.
It's hard to do everything. You know that. That's a crush to you. If you were just
Yeah.
doing the fun part, you
Oh
guys
yeah,
would
it'd be
probably
a
still
lot
be
different.
together. Right. If you had a
Yeah.
manager and you had the gigs, we'd be talking about the new Doughboys album. You know what I'm saying? But everything else
Man,
kind of crushed you. You know what
you'll
I'm
be the
saying?
first one to know. How's that?
I know. But you know what I'm saying? If you had everything lined up nicely for you and you could just go out and
Yeah,
be a musician and play the nice gigs, you'd be working on music still.
it would definitely be a different world.
Right.
And it would be a different situation with the Doughboys because they're still, like I said, they're still my favorite band
Yeah. Well,
of
there
all
is relevance, and as a fan, I'd love to see you guys at least be on good terms and be able to do one-offs or something,
Oh,
because
we are on good terms. That's
yeah.
that's
No, I
not a
mean like to
problem.
be able to still do if you wanted to do
I
something
would
as a,
love to play.
that's good. I want to thank you, man. This has been really fun. I really enjoyed
Yeah.
it. I enjoy your music, so it's been fun talking to you.
Well, I thank you. I'm glad. I'm glad you got to hear it.
I had, and that's the thing. So I want people to check out all these different bands. I mean, and really what I say to people is first off, listen to the Doughboys and listen to a lot of their albums and go on YouTube and look at the live videos. That you sound really good live. Even on a YouTube video, you sound great. You guys sound good. And then of course you can check out the live stuff with the Yardbirds. And then if you want, go back and listen to the Ram Jam albums, and then you can easily pick out what he's doing in there different with a different view and understand more of what we're talking about with
Yeah.
the vocal situation going on. You know, it's almost like there's two different guys in the band. But there's a lot of really good material that you guys have out there, and people need to check it out. And there's a website, and people check out the link, and your Facebook too page.
Yeah. Yeah. Which
Keep in
is
touch with you.
it's just a music page,
Right.
so I don't go on it a lot. My wife
Enough.
has a regular Facebook page, so she goes in for me. It shows me what's going
What's
on.
going on? I just do it for music too. Mine is all music related, pretty much. So
Yeah, yeah, it's
that's
great.
that's the good part about it. It's music, and then that's it. So I want to thank everybody for watching, and I hope people check you out. And if they don't know you, they'll check you out. So thank you, man.
www.thedoughboysnj.com.